Greetings, my name is Clint Fleetwood, and in this multi-part tutorial we're going to cover navigation meshes in Godot in a 3D space. This multi-part is multi-part because we'll go further into creating randomizing tile sets and some camera controls on this same short series. So it's going to be good, and there'll be kind of a good jump start to create this type of game if you want by the end of the tutorial series. And also, this is the first of my new format and new name for my YouTube channel. And so it used to be Aletheia Game Studios. I still own Aletheia Game Studios, but I've decided to make that exclusively my game development side and things I try to do, like, you know, to make a game and sell. And this, the Fleetwood Labs and game design, is actually more geared towards teaching and the YouTube tutorials. So if you're looking for Aletheia Game Studio, same thing. If you subscribe to our new Aletheia Game Studio channel, it really is only going to feature stuff about current games we're working on and not tutorials and things. So if you're more interested in tutorials, this is the one to go to. Anyway, so without further ado, let's just jump right in. As you can see, I'm using Blender right now, and I've created 3 different objects that will be in my little very short scene. I've got a boulder, a tree, and a dead tree. Now, this tutorial is not going to cover how to create these things. You can download them, get them, whatever. It's just basically going to cover how to create the navigation meshes. There's plenty of tutorials for Blender, and I might even make some sometime in the future, but for now, we're just going to stick with this. Alright, so the first thing we need to make is a ground. So, I'm going to do that. One of the things that you have to be very careful about in 3D when you're making navigation meshes is that they are very precise. So I can't just push, you know, Control A here to add a mesh, or Shift A and add a mesh here, because it'll pop up right here. Then I try to move it with my mouse. What I want to do is do Shift S, and I want to do cursor to center. So that puts it dead on at 0, 0, 0, 0, or 0, 0, 0. And that's important, so when I push Shift A, mesh, and add a plane, it is, you know for a fact, is dead on in the center. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edit mode, and you can technically do this in object mode, but then it would actually make the scale differently. So I go ahead and do it in edit mode, and if everything's not selected, I push A to select everything, A selects and A unselects, A to select everything, and I push S and then 1, 0, which means scales it by 10. And if I go here to object mode and pull this up, you can see that the dimensions are exactly 20 by 20 by 0. That's exactly what I want. If it's 20.001 or 20.03 or whatever, that would cause some issues. And it's also all as the scale is at 1 and the location is at 0 and the rotation at 0. All that's very important. If it's not that, there's a couple things that you can do to fix it, but we're not going to worry about that right now. You can look that up. So, what we have is a perfectly good square with those different things on it. Let's go ahead and add some color to the ground. So I'm just going to add the texture to make sure I know it's the ground. I'm going to grab the same one as the tree. It's just a material that I added just to make it a little bit simpler. Alright, next step is we're going to copy the plane. We're going to change the name first to ground. So we have the ground, and we're going to copy the plane by Shift D. And so we have ground 001, and we're going to name this navigation. Okay, and I'm going to actually change this. I'm just going to get rid of that one and add the default material, so it's easier to know what I'm doing. Yeah, so the ground's still that one, and that's that way. Okay, so this is going to be our navigation mesh. Alright, now, Blender allows you to cut into a plane very easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 7 and then 5 on the number pad so I can see it in orthographic, so I can look down at it, and so I can actually cut around each area that I need. And I can use that by going into edit mode, and now there's this knife tool. Okay, it's real simple. And because of how I want this game to play out, I don't necessarily want it to go really close around. I'm just going to kind of make a broad circle around each one to cut in for the navigation mesh. So just kind of cut around it like so. And alright, and you can see what it did, and this is actually pretty important. It actually made the vertices connect to the corners that were already there. the cut tool will before, except for the vertices you create by making cuts, it will try to connect to vertices that are already there. And that's very important because in the navigation meshes we want the vertices only to be at the at the exact corners because that makes a difference. And so we're going to go ahead and knife, and I can start here, right here. Cut that one, and then we're going to knife this one too. I'm going to go into Z so I can see where the trunk is a little bit better, and I'm going to knife down on this one as well. Okay, alright, and as you can see, all these things created 3 different faces. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click, and I'm going to shift click on each face to make sure that I just have those. Now you see that green and gray is mixing. It's because they're actually occupying the exact same space. That's not a bug, that's just what it's going to do when they occupy the exact same space. So that's no problem. But anyway, so I'm going to push delete and delete these faces. Okay, so we're in good shape right here. Now if I exported it just like this, what would happen is these weird shaped faces, which you know, any polygon is basically a face, and specifically the concave faces would cause all kinds of problems in Godot and probably any 3D engine. So the best thing to do is, and Godot will try to attempt to triangulate, but I've found from experience that it's best to let Blender handle the triangulation, and that's really easy to do. You just go to Object Mode. While you're selecting navigation, go to Add Modifier, and you can click on Triangulate. Alright, and now if you do that, you can see the lines that it creates for you. And it keeps every one of these tight in the corners like it's supposed to be, and then it just makes it nice and neat. And that's what you want to do. You click Apply. Alright, so what we have now is a navigation meshes that don't have any camera or lights or anything like that. I'll get rid of those for what I'm doing. Now you can have lights if you want, like if there's a lamp you could actually have a light on there and import it, but for right now we're just going to do it like this, and it looks pretty good, so I'm ready to export it. Actually I'm going to save this first. File, Save As. This is my folder that I got these things in, so I'm going to call this Tile 2. I already have one made. Save as WinFile. Alright, and now we need to export it. You actually probably should be using the Better Kaleido, that is an export, and it would actually be down here. I just forgot to install it on this system, but this works for this. If you have animations and other things, you definitely want to use the Better Kaleido or more advanced materials, but for this purpose, this seems to work just fine for me. So I'm going to click on Exports and make it tile2.dae. Alright, and that's all we need to do in Blender right now. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to Godot, and we will go ahead and add the scene into a little scene that I've already made. So this is a sample tile set that I've already started. I mean, a tile set, a sample game that I started, and it's not that complex. I tend to like to put a empty node as game. That's just my way of doing it. You can do that or not. It doesn't matter to me. And then I make the spatial world, and so under game I would actually have the GUI right here, and then I'd have the world under that. That's just my way of doing it. You can do whatever you want. You could actually have these all as different scenes and then combining them. There's a lot of different options, so you don't have to follow this part exactly. But the basic point is that I have a spatial that's named world, directional light just to put light on the scene, camera so I can see things, and then the one that's important is this right here. This is actually a navigation. A navigation node, and that's or 3D navigation. It's called navigation instead of 2D navigation. Make sure it's pink instead of blue, because if it's blue it'd be a 2D navigation and it wouldn't work with what we're doing. These other two things I'll describe later. So that's all we have to worry. That's what we have in this game so far. But now we're going to go ahead and import that scene that I just created. And you just go find it, and mine was under Exports, Tile 2. We're going to import the path, and we're just going to put it at the root. Again, it would make more sense to have tiles or something like that named. Alright, so let's open it up and see what it looks like. So it looks, not great, not wonderful, but it is what it is. So I'm going to get rid of the animation player, don't need it. I'm going to change the name here from Spatial to Tile 2. just because that's what I want to do. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this navigation, and we're going to change its type to create navigation mesh. Literally, it's that simple. Because I made the navigation mesh correctly, it should just work. And I'm going to pull this out from under here and delete this. Okay, so what I did is this navigation mesh does show you an error. Okay, and that error says navigation mesh must be a child or grandchild of to navigate node. It only provides navigation data. And so that error is, it's good, it's helpful, but I can kind of ignore it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all my tiles under this map navigation node. So since its parent is tile, that its grandparent, the grandparent of this mesh will be, this navigation node. Real simple. All I gotta do is add child node. Oops, sorry, wrong button. We're going to instance the child. We're going to add child instance 2. All right. So that really is, we have a navigation that is set and ready to go, and we can actually we can test this by putting a start point, which is just a 3D position, and we want the translation to be at 0 at least, so it's sitting on the ground, and then an endpoint right over here. So we push Control S, and I have an immediate geometry here, and I'm going to describe that in just a second. So to make a path is very simple with the navigation mode. So what I have here is var path equals get world node map, which is this navigation, and then the command, the function you'd call is get simple path. All right, and so this can be between a character, between a player, between anything. If you want to find a path to a tree or whatever it is, as long as the path stay, all the points, both points are on some form of navigation, it will try its best to find the path. So right now, the get translation to start point, it's just get the node and get its translation, and then this was the endpoint and get its translation. It's real simple. And I just print out paths so I can read it in the debug. Now, I did var dp, which I said draw points. That's just my shorthand for that. And that's actually the immediate geometry. And what we can do there with the immediate geometry is you just clear it out. You don't have to clear it out if you do it on ready, but it's a good practice too whenever you want to draw, because if not, it'll just keep drawing other stuff. And then dp begins in this mesh primitive line strip. And that actually, technically, you can replace that with just 2. But it's considered right to do this because 3.0 or something in the future might change these different primitives. So it's just properties. So it's just best to go ahead and use what Godot provides for you. And then all we have to do is add a vertex, and then we end it. The last thing I forgot to mention is in the immediate geometry, you need to have a material override. If not, it won't show up. So when you do this, that's one of the errors that I forgot several times, was to have a material override. So I was really upset because it would never draw. My material is real simple. It's just white, and then I do double-sided and unshaded. You could do more. You can make it fancy, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can even make it a texture if you want. So I push play. Boop, it draws the line from start path to end path right there, and that works. So you can see that the start and end are. It draws to it. So if I move the endpoint over here and push play, it'll draw it behind the tree. If I move the start point over here, it'll move from that tree and draw a path from there. Okay, really simple, and it draws the quickest path possible. The reason why you cut the navigation mesh around a little bit more is so they don't clip through or bump into the object, and there is some other functions you can do to write where it actually tries not to bump in, but the easiest thing for me is just to make the navigation mesh not bump. Alright, so let's go ahead and add another tile, and so we can combine the two tiles together. So I'm going to go ahead and instance tile 2, and I never changed the name of that one, but it's okay. And I'm going to move it over here, like so, just slightly overlapping, and then I'm going to get the start point down here, and I'm going to get the end point right here. So you would think that with the two navigation meshes in both of these, it would work, but if you push play, It doesn't. You see right down here, it shows nothing. There is no navigation. And this is why it's very, very important to be very precise when you're making navigation meshes that combine together in 3D. I think in 2D you can overlap, but right now in 3D I've only found that it works if the vertexes are exactly correct. So instead of the translation here for the spatial being -17, I'm going to make it -20. And try again. And there it goes. You see, what happened is when I knew for a fact that the square was exactly 20, so I can move it across 20, and now it'll run across both the navigation meshes and the two different items. And so you can even add another one. You can add a tile 2 down here, and then make this one the translation -20. And let's go ahead and move the camera a little bit when we do that. Yeah, and so we can make it actually run across all 3 of the navigation meshes. And see, it cuts the quickest path between the 3. And that's a way you can actually make enemies that can cut across different tiles and that sort of thing. Well, that's the end of this tutorial. We're going to go more on how to make this randomized and do some camera navigation meshes later. I would love to hear some feedback from you on this. You like it? Thumbs up, thumbs down. It really helps me out when you share with me if you like this. Also share this video, and I would love for you to consider being a Patreon because that helps me make these more videos, and the more patronage I get, the more videos I can make, and the better it'll all be. So again, thank you for your time, and I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, thanks.